Hello, my friends. It is Wednesday, November 27th, 2024, and this is a daily brief. If you are not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. I do these every day. So today is an interesting juxtaposition. There's the greatest gains for the Russians in one way and the greatest losses for the Russians in another. And I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. Let's start here with the losses on the battlefield. 1,580 Russians off the battlefield day over day. Now, what does that mean? If you've been around for a while, you'll know that that's reasonably high. The average losses is something around 700-ish over the course of the war, and then it's 1,271 in September was the high. The high in October was 1,354, and this is clearly over that, and it's low compared to some of the November daily losses, 16, 17, 1,950. So in one way, the Russians are taking it in the teeth here with these losses, but they're gaining something on the other side, and I'll show you what that means in just a moment. 14 tanks, 48 armored fighting vehicles, 24 artillery systems, 84 vehicles and fuel tanks off the battlefield. When we look at Andrew Perpetua's losses, this was from a couple days ago. That's the most recent he has. He tabulates these every day, but some days he just gets behind because there's a lot. We'll see that it's about 2, maybe not quite 3 to 1. But what's interesting here is the 97 that are no longer with us just for today, or well, for November 25th. Again, it's a couple days behind. He's trying to catch up. But 8,895 in the past 95 days. And that's just from tabulating the losses that he sees when a vehicle is blown up or something along those lines. That would mean an average of 93 a day just from what he has been able to visually recognize on the battlefield. And that's not the way that things generally go. It's usually like people get destroyed in these meat wave assaults. So he's looking at a reasonably insignificant part of the number of casualties, and it's still 93 killed per day just from, yeah. And that's something significant here. Okay, at any rate, the Ukrainian Air Force reported a Shahed drone attack overnight. Out of 89 launched, 36 were shot down, 48 were suppressed by electronic warfare, 5 more flew back to Belarus. Okay, now, what's fascinating about drone warfare is that the Russians have had at one point been able to make only about 16 per day. Their production is way up, it appears, and they keep attacking with more, but it's very ineffective. And it's going to get even more ineffective, and I'll show you how in just a moment. First, let me show you this. Russia used strategic Tu-160 against Ukraine, not last night, but just recently. And these were the same that they gave up 25 years ago. Like, that's how crazy this whole thing is. Here's some of the effect of the drone attacks last night. Russian forces launched 89 drone attacks, with air defenses shooting down over 40% of the assault, shooting down, and then electronic suppression knocked down many of the others. Now, there is a game changer right here. What you're about to see here, this is very significant. Ukraine has tested an electronic-powered anti-drone system called Hitchhiker, reports Newsweek. It can see drones, classify drones, track, and then destroy them with their own drone that they launch from multiple locations. So this is like a drone AWAC. It's not a perfect analogy, but it's something like that, where it gets up there and then it can classify what's going on in the air all around it. Here's a little bit from the Newsweek article. Developed by 2 leading American tech companies, revolutionary counter-drone technology has shown impressive potential to take down drone threats in real-life combat situations and boost battlefield intelligence. This is pretty amazing. Russia and Ukraine have both relied on drones to track enemy movements, guide weapons, and execute strikes. The Hitchhiker is a high-speed, electric-powered interceptor drone designed to destroy enemy drones such as the Iranian Shahed, more costly than traditional defense systems. So it was only a matter of time till such a countermeasure took place. I figured it would be a ground, almost cell tower-like ground measure, but I was wrong. They've developed this, and this is pretty significant. It's going to change the game of drones, and then they're going to have to try to figure out how do they subvert that, and then they're going to have to figure out how to counterbalance that again. Okay, Ukrainian soldiers say Ukrainian-made drones can now strike up to 2,000 kilometers inside Russia. Now, drones are not that effective. Like if they're hitting a target that is not just a soft target that's being defended by any air defense, the drones aren't going to be that significant. But Russia's a big place, and because it's such a big place, there are many targets. The intended targets are critical Russian infrastructure and military assets. Now, the Russians are certainly thinking about like what oil depots or what military bases do they need to have air defense around, but when you can go 2,000 kilometers, you've got a lot of choices. Ukrainian Air Force fighters continue to carry out strike operations in Kursk Oblast. Seen here, Ukrainian MiG-29 Fulcrum dropped a pair of French-supplied precision-guided AASM extended-range bombs. And so all you're seeing is what looks like a big thing of cotton. That's the aftermath of what happened when it was dropped there. There were also explosions reported in Sevastopol with smoke visible over the Black Sea Naval Academy. Earlier, the air alarm sounded in different parts of occupied Crimea. Here's another view of the same thing. The Ukrainian armed forces have attacked the Belbek airfield in Sevastopol. Powerful explosions heard in the city. Propagandists say that Ukrainian army used about 40 drones. Now, drones are not nothing, right? If you put drones and missiles, it has a harder time shooting down the missiles because it's, trying to figure out what's going on because there's so much traffic in the air. Okay, local telegram channels reported powerful explosions and published footage of smoke near the naval school at Streletsy Bay. Forgive my pronunciation. Okay, also in Moscow, a car exploded in the early morning hours. This area where it exploded is home to ultra-rich part of Putin's mafia. No information about who exactly was apparently blown up in that car bomb, and I'm not going to show you the actual thing itself. But we know that that's happened, but we don't know, and it could be nothing. It could be just, it could be a freak accident. I doubt that. It could be some of Putin's mafia attacking some of other Putin's mafia, or it could be something Ukraine related. We'll find out in a day or two what happens. Okay, let's look to the battlefield and try to understand what's going on there. Russian independent Astra News reported on 14 November 2024 that dozens of injured Russian soldiers rioted in their barracks. I showed you the video about that. Reportedly complained of mistreatment by their unit commander and did not want to return to the front lines without adequate medical treatment. They are said to have smashed windows and damaged the barracks, with 10 fleeing the compound. I showed you that video. Shortages of armored vehicles on the, so this is always a common thing. They're always running out of things, but I mean, true shortages and just keep going forward anyway, result in significant delays to evacuation of wounded Russian soldiers. This almost certainly increases the likelihood of more serious injuries and higher rates of mortality for those who are eventually evacuated through the medical system. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, Russia has suffered over 700,000 casualties since February 2022. Approximately 500,000 Russian service personnel were wounded. It's almost certain that the scale... Let's look at this. So if it's 700,000 and right now we're at 735,000 rather, and about 500,000 were wounded, that leaves you a little over 200,000 killed, clearly, Russian servicemen. It's almost certain that the scale of casualties continues to strain the Russian military medical system at all levels of medical care, causing significant logistical problems, shortage of medical personnel. They have a shortage of all kinds of things. Okay, let's look at what what effect this is having on the battlefield itself. So here we see this, and this is the ISW talking about how Ukrainian forces regained lost positions near Crimea, but that's the only good news. Okay, now I started this by saying the Russians are losing here and they're gaining there. They're losing in terms of numbers of people. They're gaining in terms of ground, and I'll show you in a moment. Russian forces recently advanced near Pokrovsk, Kharkiv, Leka, and Novosilka. Okay, let's show, here's where the smallest fighting is to the largest fighting, just looking at the map. And this is just to give you a sense of scale. It's not a great way to look at this. I want you to just think with me, from what you've seen before, where do you think the heaviest fighting is? Like, what's the city or the two places where you think that there's the heaviest fighting? You're probably right. North of uh, Kharkiv region, Ukrainian defenders repelled all 5 attacks. So 5 outside Kharkiv, not a lot. Northwest, temporary occupied Horlivka, Ukrainian defenders repelled 6 attacks. In Vremika direction, 12 assaults. On the Bakhmut front in Donetsk, there were 13 attacks. Kupiansk direction, 17 attacks. In the Lyman direction, 21 attacks. Across direction, 32 attacks, and Kharkov direction, 39 attacks. And so, like, if you said Kharkov, if you said Pokrovsk, you're right. I mean, these are going to be the heavy places, at least in the near future. Now, what's been going on around here is just, it's pretty fascinating to see what's actually happening. Russia advances in Ukraine at the fastest rate since early days of 2022. This is what I was telling you. They're losing men fast, but they're replacing those men. They're force regenerating, right? It's a defensive war, so the Ukrainians are going to lose ground. They're in defensive positions. You didn't see anything about Ukraine attacks here, Ukraine attacks there. No, this is defensive. So you're going to give up, but they're losing it at 235 square kilometers in a single week, marking the fastest territorial expansion since 2022 invasion. I hate to tell you that it's bad news, but I have to give you that bad news. I mean, I can't just ignore it. Okay, so that's not a good sign. Now let's look at this. There was another article that was talking about how Russian officials continue to demonstrate that the Kremlin aims to seize more territory in Ukraine than it currently occupies. Now it's talking about it wants all the way to the Donetsk border, but I don't think it's going to be satisfied there. It's unwilling to accept compromises or engage in good faith negotiations, no matter who mediates such talks. The ISW recently forecasted that the Russian command is likely planning how to advance into the southeast part of the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Did I say that right? I think I did. Okay, where is that? So if we're looking at the oblasts here, we have Luhansk and Donetsk and Zaporizhia and Kherson. That's this one over here. So they're trying to continue to expand, no doubt about it. Okay, let's look at something else. In one of the most ridiculous Russian disinformation efforts of the war, with intent to sow division between Ukraine and the United States, Putin's propaganda machine wants you to believe that Ukrainian soldiers, like they have nothing else to do here, with Russian accents and 10-year-old undersized patches are now burning President Trump's books. Yeah, they got a few copies of The Art of the Deal, and they show these soldiers who are setting them on fire and saying bad, awful things about Trump and then lighting these books on fire. Really? Ukrainian soldiers got nothing else going on but to burn Trump books? Yeah, it's just propaganda trying to sow division. Now, Timothy Snyder says Ukrainians are fighting and dying every day so that we can be safe and enjoy the right to say asinine, ignorant, cowardly things on podcasts. I talked about this the other day, and before I talk about that, let's talk about this. This is what Joe Rogan actually said in 2014. Now, opinions do change, but it's interesting what he actually said back in 2014. Well, Russia is an incredibly suppressive place. We know that. Very strange, backward country in terms of a lot of things that they think, and a lot of ways that they behave as a nation. And it's basically also run by one gangster. It's not a country of laws, that's for sure. Well, I mean, without a doubt. Putin, whether he's a great leader or not, is a gangster. He's just super awesome one at it. That wasn't a compliment either. He's running a country. He used to be the president, stepped down, put a puppet government in place, and then became the president again. I mean, the whole thing is magical. And then rode around on a horse, bare-chested in splendor, said his interlocutor. Yeah, that was pretty crazy and weird. And Rogan replies, yeah, he does a lot of really weird things. Well, that was Rogan back in 2014. And now Rogan was talking about we don't want to start World War III. Now, what's interesting is I put this video out here and I got more comments per view than any video that I think I've ever put out. If you want to know what's going on with what Joe Rogan's comments were, you'll see his comments, you'll see Klitschko's comments, and then you see a little bit by Representative McCall. And it'll frame everything out for you so you understand that. I put this poll out as well after that, and I said, okay, Joe Rogan is a Russian agent paid by Russia, or sincere in his studied beliefs but misguided about facts, or ill-informed and inadvertently spreading talking points, or just saying controversial stuff for ratings. And you can see how people voted. 51% said he was ill-informed and inadvertently spreading talking points. I think that's probably fair. But somebody has commented, and this is also a fair criticism of me, I didn't have a category for he's right. Like, I should have had a category there that said, that allowed people to say he is right, to see where people what they think about that. So I might put that out in the future. But I'm admitting that I got this poll wrong by not having that kind of category. Now, this was my bias seeping through because I'm just assuming that he's incorrect about that. Okay, I want to end with this. I posted this video yesterday. It's less than 4 minutes, but this guy, he's a 25-year-old platoon commander who saved his men after 67 days of fighting, and he described it. It was just amazing to watch. I'm going to ask you to spend 4 more minutes watching this video right here. 4 more minutes. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine. 4 minutes. It'll be worth it. I promise you.